I can tell you a really defining moment for me, something that I'll never forget, is when I was in the second grade. I was going to the grocery store with my mom, and we went up to the checkout stand, no different from any other time we'd been there, and I saw my mom. She was really nervous. She was shaking. She was embarrassed. And I saw her pull out a packet that I'd never seen before. It was a packet of food stamps. And I came from a proud family. My father was a very proud man. But seeing my mom's hand shake as she pulled out those food stamps, it was tough asking the government for help. I also spent a lot of time growing up with my grandparents. My grandfather and grandmother met in World War II, went through the Depression. My grandfather was a police officer. He volunteered for the Korean War. My wife Sonia and I, we first met, and she knew that our life was going to have challenges. I went off to reserve duty quite a bit, served in Desert Storm in Somalia, but I also chose a career in the agriculture industry that caused me to have to commute back and forth to spend the winters in Yuma, Arizona. These are experiences that define my values. My parents, my Christian upbringing, they define who I am today. When I first ran for the Senate, a very, very tough campaign. They said a Republican couldn't win. It was a very challenging thing to go through in my early 30s. But the real challenge was in the last month of that campaign, my father became very, very ill. And I took the month off, not only of my campaign, but from my business to go tend to him. I've got my priorities straight. I'm pro-life. I believe the right to bear arms is not just for hunting or home protection. In our rural communities, it's a freedom that I, as well as other families, fought for. And when Congressman Radonovich called me and asked me to run, I asked him why. Why me?
Time.
And it was because of my principled stance not only on the budget, but how I stood strong during the recall, even when the Dems pushed hard, spent millions against me.
Mr. Denham, your time is up. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's a delight to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, KMJ, for the opportunity tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running for Congress because America is in trouble, and I want to help get her back on the right path. I want to visit with you just briefly about some of the things that I believe and some of the values that I want to take to Washington on your behalf. First and foremost, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights say what they mean and mean what they say. Our government has been formed to serve us, not the other way around. And elected leaders must be reminded that we Americans are informed, we are energized, we are on guard, and we are going to hold them accountable. I actually think that there's a force of genius at work in our country. It is the genius of the Constitution. And I believe that the U.S. government must be restrained by that genius and by that force of our Constitution. Our Congress has to end their current glut of out-of-control spending. We have to have members of Congress who will cut repressive taxation, endless debt, and tyrannical regulation. And I'm running for Congress because I believe that traditional family and social and religious values are worth preserving, they're worth defending. I am pro-family, I am pro-life, and pro-traditional marriage. And I will take these values to Washington with me. Life and marriage and kids need clear, strong voices in Washington these days. I will be one of them. I also think too many politicians seem more concerned with merely holding a title and an office than by leading by example and changing history. I am wearing a very old but revered Ronald Reagan campaign button from the 1980s. He is an example of the kind of conservative who stood, was persuasive and persistent. Conservative ideas really matter. They are the powerful engines of freedom and of opportunity. They form the foundation for everything that has made America great. We must not let our politicians in Washington or Sacramento and our own government betray our American ideals. I want to go to Washington, D.C. to renew our commitment to them and to join a rising tide of conservatives in Washington that will take back our country. And this is my pledge to you. I am asking for your vote. I'm asking you to send me to Congress on your behalf, and I will champion our values as the solutions to our problems. Thank you very much.
Mr. Patterson, thank you. Mr. Pombo, 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Richard Pombo, and I'm running for the 19th Congressional District. And tonight, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here, and why I think this is so important. Yeah, I did get a chance to serve as a member of Congress. I was elected in 1992. I went back there at 30 years old with ideals, with a set of values that were given to me, and I wanted to change our country. I grew up in a cattle ranching family. I'm fourth generation on my dad's side, fifth generation on my mom's side. I grew up with 4 brothers, a house with 5 boys in it. I grew up in a family where I had 57 first cousins on my dad's side. We were a big family, obviously pro-life. And we were very close. I grew up listening to stories about what my grandparents and my great-grandparents went through and what was so important to them. I hear about my grandfather struggling to hang on to the dairy and how the kids would go out every afternoon and chase the cows down the side of the road so they could eat the grass on the side of the road, doing everything they possibly could during the Depression to hang on to that dairy, to hang on to the ranch. I grew up, I got married, been married for 27 years. I got 3 great kids. And when my son was born, my world changed. My world changed because all of a sudden the responsibility was on me to give my son the opportunity, or my daughters the opportunity, to take over that ranch. And the world changed because all of a sudden I realized that I may not be able to give them that, not because of anything I did or my dad did or my brothers did, because of things that my government was doing. Things that they were doing in regulation and taxation that were making it increasingly more difficult for us to be able to hold on to the farm, hold on to the ranch. And every small business owner in the country was going through the exact same thing. The same battles, the same challenges. I ran for Congress in what was considered a safe Democrat district, and I won, and I went back there, and I fought with everything I had in order to change this country. And I was successful at doing it. And that's why I'm being attacked now in a Republican primary by all of these liberal groups now.
Mr. Pombo, thank you. Mr. Westerland, 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here and an honor to stand on this stage with these gentlemen. Thank you for coming down this evening. You know, I've had a lot of people ask me, why am I in this race? You know, there are 3 formidable opponents. Why is a city council member in this race? And I'll tell you why, because I'm angry, and I'm frustrated, and I'm mad. And I think the people in the 19th District, I know they're mad, they're frustrated, and they're as angry as I am angry for the direction our country and our state, our nation is going. You know, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of folks, and folks are tired of the same old, same old. They want somebody new, they want fresh ideas, they want somebody who will work hard. You know, I watch and you watch, and we see what's happening, and we see what happens in Arizona. You know, and I'm telling folks, and I think this is true, and we all need to think about this, is that we should be supporting what Arizona is doing. As the rest of the country, all the liberal bastions are striking against Arizona and are tearing it down. They are doing what we should have been doing, the federal government should have been doing for years, and that's to defend our borders. It is a national security issue, is what it is. And we should be applauding them and helping them. And so I'm asking people, you know, my family's going to go to Arizona for our vacation. Come join us. They need the help. The other thing, that our nation is under attack. Our Constitution is under attack. You know, I chair the Fresno City Council, and right now we have got a group that wants us to stop praying. And it's not the fact that we stop praying, but to stop using the word Jesus Christ in the prayers. You know, we had a federal judge several weeks ago go ahead and rule the day of national prayer unconstitutional. We have lost it in this country, and we need a change of direction. You know, one of us is going to go back to Washington, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. And when that day comes, we need to send somebody back there who's going to get results. I think people are tired of sending politicians back to Washington who don't get anything done. They're more interested about preserving their job, they're preserving their special interest, than they are about taking tough stands. You know, we have mortgaged our children and grandchildren's future to the Chinese to the tune of $800 billion, and the number is going up. We have a national debt that is approaching $14 trillion. And are we doing anything about it? No, we're not doing anything about it. We need to have elected officials who will take a stand, who will work for the people and not the special interest. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm angry. That's why I'm going to be the little guy in this race, and I hope you consider me for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Westerland, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much for some great stuff there. Really appreciate it. Again, if we could hold the applause till the end of the show tonight, we really appreciate that. We drew backstage earlier before the event began a drawing to see who would take the first question, and that honor will go to Mr. Richard Pombo. Dennis Hart, you're up, sir.
Mr. Pombo, good evening. Good evening. Let's start with the issue of illegal immigration. Do you believe that anyone who is here right now as an illegal immigrant should be detained, arrested, and deported? And if so, what would that do to the Valley's agricultural economy and the overall economy?
And we have 90 seconds?
90 seconds, sir. Starting now.
The answer is yes. If they're in the country illegally, they should be arrested, detained, and deported immediately. But in order to solve our immigration problem, there are several things that have to happen. Number one, we have to lock down our border. That is the first and foremost thing that we need to do, and the primary responsibility of the federal government is to protect its country, protect its borders. We need to lock down our borders and stop people from illegally entering this country, no matter what the reason is that they're entering in. Second, we need overall immigration reform. We need comprehensive immigration reform that includes a guest worker program, so that if there are industries, if there are jobs in this country that go wanting, that no one is willing to fill, we can have those people, those employers, sign up for a program and sign up for willing people to come in and work. But those jobs have to be offered to U.S. citizens first. If they are not filled, they can fill it with a guest worker, a temporary guest worker who comes into the country temporarily, works, and then it goes back to their home country. Thank you.
That question now to Mr. Patterson. Sir.
Well, first and foremost, I think that the answer to that direct and straightforward question deserves a direct and straightforward answer, and the answer is yes. And I was at another forum not long ago and received a straightforward question about a straightforward issue, and I answered it yes as well. The question was, if I was in the legislature in Arizona, would I have voted for the Arizona legislation? My answer to that would be yes as well. And I want to make a distinction between legal immigration and illegal immigration. We have illegal immigration out of control, and as Richard has said, and I think others up here will say, that we have got to make sure that our borders are controlled. Now, that means offense. It means militarization, if necessary. It means the National Guard. A country without secure borders has lost its very sovereignty, and we need to make sure that America retains its sovereignty. And then with control, we can set up a rational, private sector-based, fair and honest methodology.
Most people do not think about their arteries and veins, but the vascular surgeons at Kaweah Delta Medical Center focus on little else. They pour themselves into these silent yet vital highways for blood flow. When varicose veins cause leg fatigue, aching, or itching, Kaweah Delta's vascular surgeons can present several treatment options to alleviate symptoms. When a short walk leads to cramping in your
Ways of putting fences up. There are ways of electronic surveillance. We can put the National Guard there. And the failure of Arizona, the failure of the federal government is why Arizona has had to take under control its own borders. And so I think there is a framework beginning to be developed. Arizona and other states are developing that framework, and I think that we need to go to Washington with members of the United States Congress who will first and foremost close the border, secure it, and be also make sure that we have a clear, fair way for people who want to come to the United States to work and to gain legal citizenship should be able to do it.
Mr. Patterson, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Right.
No intent, believe me. Sorry about that. Thanks for bearing with us. Mr. Denham, 90 seconds, sir.
A simple answer is yes. We've got to uphold the laws of our state, the laws of our nation. But as a state senator, one of the calls that I get frequently are those families that came here legally, that are working here legally, and somehow lost their immigration status, to no fault of their own, because we've got a bureaucracy that doesn't work. So we've helped them to work through that bureaucracy. It's something that we must look at during the whole immigration debate. But absolutely, we've got to secure our borders. It's a states' rights issue that we've got to take care of our own state. I applaud what Arizona has done. The federal government has not fulfilled its obligation. Whether you're talking about education funding, the funding of illegal immigrants that are incarcerated in our prisons, our hospitals, it is an expense that has gone out of control, and if our federal government is not going to take charge of its responsibility, it becomes a states' rights issue, and we've got to defend our borders.
Mr. Denham, thank you. Mr. Pombo, you have 30 seconds to add anything additionally, if you'd like, to that question.
Well, Larry.
Oh, Larry, sir, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I would like a chance to answer the question.
He's the little guy.
I'd like to note that I've been up since 2 a.m. I'd just like to note that. I'm a little bit tired, so thank goodness for Starbucks. Mr. Westerland, 90 seconds, sir.
I appreciate that I'm the little guy in this race, but I would like the opportunity to answer the question.
I apologize. My bad, my bad. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yes, yes. Look, we are a nation of laws. Everyone is under the rule of law. There is a reason why the Constitution is strong and clear on this issue. And we have got to abide by those rules. Everyone is under the law. We need to find and have comprehensive immigration reform. And it's the buzz term that people use, but it really means taking on the bureaucracy that makes it so incredibly, incredibly arduous to be able to get into this country legally, that people would pay huge amounts of dollars to coyotes to smuggle them to get in here. And we have got to secure the border. You know, this is a puzzle that all fits together in one piece. And you can't pull out any single piece by itself. It's got to be dealt with together. So, to answer your question directly, yes, we need to abide by the rules and the laws of this country. And thank you.
Mr. Westerland, thank you. You have 30 seconds additionally, if you'd like. Mr. Pombo?
Yeah, and just very quickly, immigration is a federal issue, and it is a failure on the part of the federal government to enforce our federal laws in terms of immigration. Arizona is doing nothing more than enforcing federal law when they authorize their law enforcement officers to detain someone that they suspect is in the country illegally. But it is a failure on the part of the federal government, which has caused the issue not just in Arizona, but in every state.
Gentlemen, thank you. Mr. John Ellis from the Fresno Bee, you're up, sir.
I'm going to follow up on Dennis's question. You know, there's a lot of talk from each of you guys up there about the National Guard, a fence, militarization if necessary, rounding up 12 million people, I guess, and sending them all back to their home countries. I want specifically to know how we are going to accomplish this economically, where this money is going to come from, where you propose to cut a budget that Mr. Westerlund brought up is several $1 trillion in the hole. How do we do it? How's it done specifically?
Mr. Patterson, that's to you, sir. 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Wonderful. First and foremost, I think we have to round up and get the criminal, illegal immigrants first and foremost. And I think that means those that we have caught, those that we catch, those that are shooting, the amphetamine operations, go to the criminal elements first and foremost. Secondly, I think we have to then decide that we are going to go after illegal immigrants who have been here and committed other kinds of crimes, thefts and drug crimes, been on either probation or in some other way. I think the final set of folks that need to be looked at are those who have come here, been here for a good long time, done nothing more than come here illegally, have born children, their children have served in the military, and I think that we have to see some significant separation in all of that. And then finally, we've got to return to what is the great American tradition, which is, in fact, legal immigration, where people who want to be citizens can come here and they can come through the system and do it in such a way that it is simple, they can get through with sponsors and help, and let's return to a time when citizenship really meant something and people came here for those purposes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Denham?
This is too big of an issue not to address. I mean, first, absolutely, we've got to make sure we've got a secure border. But as far as rounding people up, again, you have to look at how they came here in the first place. Did they come here illegally, or did they come here legally and just have citizenship expired? You know, my wife's here tonight. She's first generation here. Her father came over the Bracero program legally, and then went through the process of becoming a citizen here in our great country. That system has not only failed, but it is flawed. So we absolutely have to change the system. Now, there are going to be some costs to that. We're going to have a secure ID program. I expect that the cost, though, of not addressing it is too great. Again, on our prisons, on our schools, on our medical system, our hospitals, and we're putting law enforcement in a position where they're now ignoring some of the problems because they're not being enforced in our jails. They're not being deported. And we're allowing crime to continue on. The question isn't whether we can or whether we should. We have to address this problem.
Mr. Denham, thank you. Mr. Westerlund, I got you this time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You know, the question, and so far I haven't heard an answer yet to it. How are we going to fund something like this? We've talked about distinctions in who's here and how they got here and in what way. You know, the avenue that I would propose for funding this is a complete ban on earmarks. We have got earmarks as long as the day, as long as both my arms and as long as the day. And we have used that and abused that system in such a fashion that there are millions and millions of dollars there that can be utilized to go forward with this. And it was terrible under the Republicans, and it hasn't gotten any better under the Democrats either. Let me give you an example. $2.2 million for a water pipeline for a money-losing golf course in San Francisco. That'll go a long way, I think. $389,000 for people to keep a journal on their malt, liquor, and marijuana use. Why? I haven't the clue. A $30,000 study for sex drive in rats on hard drugs. The size of